morning, ladies and gentlemen of the press. I thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you. Our first presenter for today is Honorable Emma Hippolyte, the Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives, and Consumer Affairs. She wants to make a very brief statement, and since we are pressed for time, she won't be at the podium for too long. Honorable.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, gentlemen and ladies of the press. Good morning, St. Lucia. I felt this morning that I needed to do a bit of clarification based on a statement made by Mr. Titus Previll, the candidate for the United Workers' Party in Babono, yesterday. I want to put on record that Mr. Titus Previll was also the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Commerce for a very long time. And I want us, while I make my statement, to clarify, and what I'm going to clarify today is the difference between zero-rated VAT and exempt VAT. Mr. Previll made the statement that the government was trying to mislead the general public when it informed that 70 items were being zero-rated. And I want to bring you back to the statement, my statement as the Minister for Commerce in the Parliament of St. Lucia. And when I spoke on the issue of VAT exempt and zero-rated and items at a price control, we were very clear. Very clear. I want you to go back to those statements. We were very clear that there were certain items that were VAT exempt and that we were bringing in order to control rising prices. We had sat down with stakeholders. We had sat down with the Ministry of Commerce, with the members of the Chamber of Commerce, Lisbon. We sat down and arrived at a list of items that we wanted to be zero-rated. Now, the main issue is what's the difference between VAT exempt and zero-rated? And you said it several times. If an item is VAT exempt, that is, there is no VAT on the item for the consumer. However, the business person who is operating cannot claim the VAT associated with the sale of that item. However, when an item is zero-rated, again, the consumer does not get the VAT, but the business place can claim the expenditure associated with the sale of that item. Why is it important? And I think, again, in my presentation in Parliament, I clarified it several times. The business community then have the opportunity to share that savings, that VAT savings, with the general public. So it has an implication in terms of bringing down the price of that item. I went at length on that. I also believe that Mr. Previll indicated that when the United Workers' Party comes into office, that they're going to have policies as it relates to containing price. He was the permanent secretary, the head of the Ministry of Commerce. He was the technical head of the Ministry of Commerce for all this time, and he has not prepared. He did not present one policy statement to the government that was not implemented. What head is he now going to put to bring new suggestions now? If you look at where the Ministry of Commerce was yesterday and where it is today, a vast difference. Not only in price control items and what we're doing now in terms of containing high prices, when you look at our MSME program, when you look at our Love St. Lucia program, that's a ministry that has moved way beyond where Mr. Previll was. And this government and this country is not going back. We are moving forward.
That's it? Any questions?
Measures have been taken to ensure that the business community adheres to the changes with VAT?
That's a very good question. And remember, I brought your attention that we had stepped up our number of persons on the road. In fact, for the last month, 6 weeks, we had most of our staff at the Ministry of Commerce, not only the Consumer Affairs Department, the other staff members of the other departments. We went around, get baseline data, and now what we're doing is the monitoring and to compare. If you realize at the last Parliament session as well, I started telling you, giving you information as to what the prices were and the reductions. And that is continuing. We are also working with the National Consumers Association, and we also have a hotline that anybody can call to give us information. We've done so and we will continue to do so. But I also want to say that we have received a commitment from the business community that they are going to work with us. As a government, if we believe that the business community is not working with us based on the data when we get it, then we do other things. But at the moment, we have an agreement, there is trust, and I want the John public to understand that. That's it? Okay. Well, I just felt it was necessary to remind you, well, today is Monday. Yesterday we had the beginning of Soufrière Carnival. I guess I saw some of you all jumping. I think the people I saw, some of them. Yeah. And we're going to end today. I want to take this moment to thank the revelers for enjoying themselves and trying to remain safe. I want to thank the organizers, Soufrière Events Management Committee, Mr. Rock and his team for the work that they've done. I also want to thank the Ministry of Culture and the support that was provided from Castries to Soufrière. I want to thank the police officers, actually, who has been on the road, making sure that the arrangements are there. And generally to exhort not only persons from Soufrière, but revelers all around to try to enjoy yourself in a safe and wholesome manner. Yeah, that's important. Also, as well, yesterday was the 40th anniversary of the priesthood of our Archbishop Malzer, and we had this ceremony at St. Anne's Parish in Monrepo. So I want to take this moment on behalf of the government and people of St. Lucia to thank Archbishop Malzer for the work that he's doing in shepherding the Catholic Church and the parish. I wish him well.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now welcome the Acting Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Ernest Hilaire. He's also the Minister for Tourism, Investment, Creative Industries, Culture and Information. He has a few updates for us based on the Carnival festivities, on arrivals and a few other things. Honorable.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, the first time I'm seeing you all since Carnival. I trust you all had a wonderful Carnival. I saw Jerry in Juve. Where Hamilton, you know there? Yeah. But it looked like you at least. No, I'm just teasing you. I hope you all had a fantastic season. So I wanted to share with you some data today, both in terms of arrivals for the month of June and the preliminary data that we have for July for the Carnival. I think we'll also touch on the Bannons Bay development, GPH, and I mean any other matters that you want to raise. Let's start with June 2025. Silver arrivals amounted to 33,696. And as we expected, it was below the comparative figures for June 2024. In fact, it was about 12% below. Now, for some persons, that might suggest something dramatic to have such a decline. But I want you to remember, in June 2024, we hosted Cricket World Cup, and we had a 42% increase in 2024 over 2023. So what you see in this year for June 2025 is almost a return to normalcy, because last year June was, I mean, record-breaking. We had, like I said, it was Cricket World Cup, and we saw a 42% increase in last year. So you will see a decline for June for this year. And of course, all the markets showed some decline over 2024. The Caribbean region was the only region that continued to show an increase, and in June we saw an increase. And of course, the arrival numbers for St. Lucia Carnival, and I will provide you with an official table with all the data so you can see all the numbers. In fact, Melissa will provide you with the table. For July 2025, in 2024, we registered in the 2 weeks, the 20 days leading up to Carnival. This is how we measure it, the 20-day period up to the Parade of the Bands. In 2024, we had 26,186 visitors. This year, we had 28,764 visitors, representing a 10% increase of 2025 over 2024. All the markets showed increases. The United States, an increase of 6%, United Kingdom, an increase of 1%, Canada, an increase of 16%, and the Caribbean, an increase of 35%. And of course, that was quite pleasing for us. One of the noticeable features we saw in this year arrival numbers was, despite the increases in every market for Carnival, we noticed a decline in the St. Lucia diaspora this year compared to last year. And I think we all can understand why we would have seen a decrease in the St. Lucian diaspora. I think the uncertainties with immigration issues and whatnot, some people chose not to travel as they normally would have done. But despite that, we still saw an increase. Also importantly is the what we call the Carnival Patron Survey in terms of expenditure. The daily average expenditure was $525 US dollars per visitor. The top spend categories in order of rank was Carnival band packages, event tickets, and accommodation. The average daily expenditure, during the Carnival time is always significantly higher than all other times of the year. So we have realized through our research that the expenditure at Carnival time is always significantly higher. A lot more money is spent on transportation, rental of cars and whatnot, on food and beverage, and of course on the different parties that patrons would attend. So we're very happy with the numbers we've seen for Carnival, and it really was reflected throughout St. Lucia that we had a significant number of persons. When we go into the totality for July, we expect July to also have very strong arrival numbers. So if you look at the numbers, both the June and July, and also I have to point out when we account for June 2025, remember we have less rooms this year than we had last year because the rooms on the Ridgeway Beach, all three hotels have now been shut down and out of commission. In fact, if you go there now, you'd realize they've also been demolished. So we actually have less rooms than we had in 2024 and certainly in 2029. The Secrets opened recently, adding back 355 luxury rooms to the St. Lucian room stock. But we still lost, over 500 rooms with the Redry Hotel. So despite the decline in June, which I said we can account for by the fact that June 2024 was unusually high arrival month for us because of Cricket World Cup, and I think there was also an international conference being held in St. Lucia during that month. So we're quite pleased with our visitor arrivals. Already, some partners and stakeholders are saying they're already having strong bookings for next year, people who've already booked for next year. We're indicating that we'll probably be on track for another bumper year next year if all continues as is. So I don't know if you ask any questions on this.
Thank you. Question on, since we're speaking about travel, let's talk about the numbers first, the travel numbers for Carnival. We know that a lot of people were on island for Carnival, and we know that there were some questions about even the route change going forward. Can you speak to that? Is Carnival getting too big for us? And if it is getting too big for us, what can we do about it?
Yeah, it's a very good question. There's always been talk about the route and what's the best route and the challenges of the route that we have. We're very proud of the route that we have, Mega J to Mega J, along the waterfront, but it is posing quite a few challenges and continues to pose challenges. And as the bands get bigger, it becomes even more challenges. And I must say hat off to all the police officers, emergency personnel that worked, the CPMC staff and the road marshals. They did an excellent job managing the experience on the road, and we have to say thank you to police, firemen, everyone who worked on that day. But it is still challenging, and we have to have a hard look at how do we move forward. Because if it continues to grow at the pace at which it is growing, it forces us to question whether we should not move. But the point is, if people love the route that you have and you move to another route, what would be the consequence? Because the route has a certain charm about it, jumping along the airport, along the waterfront, a short turnaround in the city and back up that same route. It just has a vibe about it, and I'm not sure we will have, if we move to another more sterile route. So it is something we have to consider. We still have to examine whether or not we can do better road management and band management on the road. So there's going to be a lot of reviewing and discussion, and we're going to see how we move forward. We're going to make some very early decisions so we can really plan properly for next year, whichever way we go. Because if the most popular alternative is Millennium Highway. But that poses itself some challenges for us. The hospital, how do you move people, whatnot. Because here you end where you start, so somebody can park at the start knowing they end back right there. But if you start somewhere else and you end there, how do they get back to the vehicles? And it's not impossible, because in Barbados, for example, that's how it is. But the point is, it will be challenging. And we're still in love with our route as it is. So we're going to have a lot of discussions on it and see how we can move forward.
Yeah, my next question will be about the free movement of people in CARICOM. I think 4 countries would have agreed to it. What is holding St. Lucia back?
I will have to be briefed on it.
Okay. All right, no problem. And final question. I know that there is an Expo Japan thing coming up in August.
End of August.
Tell me about that preparation for that, and why is it so important?
Well, World Expo is really an opportunity for the nations of the world to show off to the world who they are, in the people, their customs, their traditions, whatnot. And 4 years ago, we were in Dubai, and we had quite a fantastic showing in Dubai. Our pavilion was a heavily visited pavilion, and we put on a cultural show that was talked about. We intend to do the same in Osaka. The pavilion is open right now, and there's quite a lot of activity at the pavilion. And St. Lucia is, again, one of the favored pavilions. This year, we're going to ensure that we put on quite a show in terms of our creative expressions. And we're broadening what we're going to put on display. We want to put on more soca music, more calypso. We want to make sure fashion is centerpiece again. We want to make sure the culinary arts is really to the fore. So we're putting together a very exciting package that we're going to put on display in Osaka. Planning is moving ahead quite well. I'm very pleased with what I've been briefed on. In Dubai, we also had an investment conference where we brought in CIP, SLTA, Export St. Lucia, and Invest St. Lucia. And we're going to do it again in Osaka, where we're going to invite investment firms. We're going to invite potential developers, travel agents, tour operators, CIP agents, all of them to come together for us to present St. Lucia. Export St. Lucia usually puts on a display of what St. Lucia has to offer in terms of products, and we're going to do the same. So we're expecting the investment conference in Osaka to be just as big as it was in Dubai.
Any reason why Japan?
Well, I mean, the BIE, the Bureau for International Expositions, is an international agency that organizes those world expos. And there's a whole bidding process that takes place. I think the next one will be held in Saudi Arabia in 4 years' time. So it is something which countries bid for and is hosted. In 2027, I think we're hosting the World Expo that features, the expo that features music and sports. And St. Lucia, again, is going to feature at that expo. You know Julian, of course, Olympic champion, hopefully world champion by September. So she will definitely be part of our feature, and quite a few of our, creatives will be in Serbia. So we're looking forward to that one. But this one is a smaller one. It's not a world expo. It's a specific expo. It focuses on a specific type of activity.
Yeah, final question from me. Straight from Carnival into CPL, preparations for CPL in terms of management of tourism facilities, even the ground up north. Anything?
Yeah, well, before we even reach CPL, we have emancipation.
Oh, that too.
On Friday last week, we launched a calendar for emancipation, and this Friday is a public holiday, as you know, commemorating the emancipation. And we will be having, event, on the 1st. A number of communities will also be having their carnivals, which are traditionally held on Emancipation Day. So this weekend is going to be a very busy weekend. The entire month of August is dedicated to commemoration of emancipation, and there are quite a few exciting activities. I think this week the CDF will be going full blast promoting the emancipation calendar of events. As you know, Carnival sucks out all the attention, and there's always a catch-up for emancipation because Carnival itself is such a big feature. But we're looking forward to it. And of course, CPL is the ending of August. St. Lucia is defending. The St. Lucia Kings will be the defending franchise. And, all preparations are on course for, the Darren Summit Cricket Ground. And from what I've been told, the team is certainly looking forward to defending its title.
Morning, Minister. Based on the data you guys have gathered regarding Carnival throughout the years, are we seeing more foreigners playing mass than locals?
Yeah, we've seen a significant increase in number of foreigners, and it's reflected too in the visitor arrivals. So yes, and look at the size of the bands. I mean, you have bands touching 2,000 revelers now, which was not something we saw previously. My own involvement will tell me that bands would barely touch 500. There's probably two big bands in those days, Red and Just for Fun, that were huge, but we were not accustomed to seeing 2,000 persons in a band. It would be 300, maybe barely touching 500. But now, we've seen a significant increase in Fusion, in Legends, in Just for Fun, in Zuvo, really big bands. But a lot of that is attributed to foreigners, visitors, coming and playing mass in St. Lucia.
Although Carnival has become a part of St. Lucia's tourism product, it is still a cultural thing. Is there any concern about the dwindling numbers of locals taking part?
Well, I don't know if I'll describe it as dwindling numbers per se. And let me tell you why. There's a lot of, uh, comments made by individuals, and sometimes you really need to sit down and reflect on it. So let me just say a few things to you. So somebody would have said to me that less St. Lucians were in Castries watching Carnival, and before there used to be so many people in the boulevard watching Carnival. Now visualize the boulevard, and how many people the boulevard can really hold. Even when it's packed, with bands moving around the boulevard. Think about it, just visualize the boulevard. Now, we don't go into the boulevard anymore. But also too, the bands go up to Mega J. So the entire route from Mega J to Castries have people watching the bands. Before, everybody was in the city center watching the bands. There was only one band that went back up to Mega J. So St. Lucians have actually spread out along the route watching the bands. And then secondly, you have to factor in, it's live on TV, it's live on Facebook, and people can follow from the comfort of their sofa and not have to leave their homes to go and watch like before. So the times have changed. So it doesn't mean less St. Lucians are viewing Carnival. We have to account for the fact that there are more platforms on which people can watch. So, you don't have to leave your home. Calypso Finals, Soca Monarch, you can watch it live on television. You can watch it live on Facebook. It doesn't mean less people are watching because the numbers in the city center seem smaller. And I've had to point that out. There have been criticisms about the cultural authenticity of our carnival and whether or not cultural traditions are still being preserved, whatnot. Again, this year, well, let me first of all also tell you, this year we made a determined effort. For many years, we did not have a still ban on the road. We had a still ban this year. We made sure that we spoke in the Still Ban Association, and a still ban was put on the road. Hopefully next year we'll have two. Hopefully in the next 3-4 years, every major ban will have a still ban associated with it, because that's what we are going to be proactive in encouraging. This year, Zuvo had a ban. They had a still ban that was part of their presentation. We also had an increase in the number of French bands that were the more authentic expressions. We had a La Rose band this year for the first time, the Vieux-Fort North La Rose group. We've never had that before. And again, we made a determined effort to bring in those elements into it. Next year, we'll have even more of the French influence. We'll have more of the local drumming influence. Hopefully next year, we can even put on some street theater as part of the experience. Next year, we're hoping we'll have more La Rose bands as part of the festival. And because this time of the year is the La Rose season, so they're already in action. So we're going to continue to make that effort to bring in more of our traditional cultural expressions as part of our carnival, to give it a broader and a more expansive, cultural space in terms of expression, different cultural expressions. There's talk about the carnival band should be more traditional, and more St. Lucians should join the band, the traditional bands. Nobody's stopping anybody from jumping in any of the traditional bands. Nobody is. So any individual is free to go and sign up with a traditional band. There's no reason why somebody cannot decide they want to be in Tribe of 12. In fact, I encourage more St. Lucians to go and jump in Tribe of 12. Go to Expressions and go to all the other bands. Do it. And if anybody believes that there is a need for more traditional bands, please do it. That nobody's stopping it, and I think we should encourage. But we should also encourage the party bands to offer more authentic and more, what people see as traditional cultural expressions in their bands. They have to find ways to be more creative and offer. But it's a business. For some of them, yes, they have the cultural objectives, but it's also a business for them, and it's part of the business space. And we should, encourage them to bring in more cultural elements, but they also have to run their business. Most of their clientele want a certain type of costume, a certain type of experience. Some people have complained about the price of costumes, and as minister, you should ask those bands to sell the costumes cheaper for St. Lucians. I don't know how we're going to do that. I mean, you don't go to a supermarket and tell a supermarket to sell its products cheaper, whatnot. I mean, that's their price. If you don't like the price, you go to a cheaper band. But you want a $2,000 costume because you want to be in that band, but you want to pay $500 for it. Well, go to the $500 band, but they don't want the $500 costume. They want the expensive costume. So we have all those dynamics. At the end of the day, I personally have an issue with the descriptions of what is cultural and what is not cultural, what is creative and what is not creative. I don't know that anybody can define my creativity. I mean, how do you look at a painting by a Van Gogh and a painting by a Danson Saint-Omer and say he's not creative because this guy is a classic painter and millions are paid for his paintings, but this other local painter is not creative? Why? Because he has a different style of painting? Because he's not as well known as the other one? I mean, a lot of those issues come to the fore. But fundamental to us, and we've identified the pillars that we follow, cultural preservation is important, which means our carnival must have elements of our cultural identity and who we are as a people. And we have to identify those elements and we have to promote those elements. But we should not do it by pulling down another component of it that is so successful for us. The private parties in St. Lucia is a big part of our carnival experience. There are people who come to St. Lucia and they come just for the parties, the private events. That's part of it. We shouldn't bring it down because it is successful and it's to the fore. We have to elevate the other side of it, and we're going to continue to work with stakeholders to elevate it, to make sure that, we have that balance. So there is that commercialization taking place, but there's also the cultural preservation taking place. I don't know if I answer your question. Yeah, well, well, two other points quickly I want to make. This morning we opened Showcase Americas, which is our premier tourism showcase for travel partners in the Americas. So at Royalton this morning we have, and I invite you to visit there, we have quite a few travel partners having business meetings and discussions on the industry, preparing for the winter and for 2026. And it's quite an attractive offering that St. Lucia is presenting to the travel partners. And they'll be in St. Lucia for the next 2 days and seeing what it is that we have to offer. On the Banan development, again, we're going to continue with the engagement of the residents at Banans. I have seen a couple of newscasts, including individuals who claim to be fishers. And I can tell you, somebody should have asked them to show their license that they are licensed fishermen. It's one thing when somebody does an interview with you and say that they are fishermen and they're not treating them right. Anyone who does that, tell them let you see their license to show that they are fishermen for true. But there's a very determined effort by the opposition to say to them not to move, to stay there, and they will provide them with legal representation. I want to assure all St. Lucians that SLASPA has gone beyond what would be required to make sure they satisfy the individuals who live there. And like I said, there are different categories of individuals. There are individuals who own businesses, and they are treated particularly because that's a source of income and business. There are individuals who have empty structures there, and they have to be dealt with in a particular way. There are persons who reside there, they will be treated in a particular way, and there are fishers, and the fishers are being treated in a particular way as well. So each category is treated differently. But as would happen, a fisher or somebody who probably involved in fishing would recognize that somebody who's a resident is getting X amount, and they feel they should get the same amount. But it's totally different, because you have a fishing hut, you are being temporarily relocated for a new facility to be built for you that you're going to come back to. You don't live there. So you are given support, for the inconvenience you will suffer, but you're coming back to a modern facility. That's different to somebody who lives there and now has to go and find somewhere else to live. So, you have to be constantly explaining that to different individuals. And of course, when the politics come into it, because they are now told that the new yardstick is, Mary, and then they have all different, false notions put in their heads of some of the individuals. They've gone to the lawyers, have asked for permission to represent them. But we're going to continue to work with each individual to talk to them, to make sure that each individual is satisfied. I've said to all the residents there, if anyone is dissatisfied with the way in which SLASPA is treating them, they can come to me as a parliamentary rep. And SLASPA, by the way, also has what they call a dispute resolution mechanism. So if anybody objects to what they have, they can go to the dispute resolution mechanism to have a resolution. But beyond all of that, if anybody believes they are not being treated well, despite the instructions we've given to SLASPA, they can come to me. And let me tell you, I don't think only one person would have spoken to me, only one. So, because I know what has been offered to individuals. I know the discussions that have taken place with individuals. So, again, anyone who feels that they have been unjustly treated, feel free. Let's have a discussion. Let's see how we can resolve it. If anybody can prove to me that they are being treated badly or they're getting less than they're supposed to get, we'll address it. Let's move beyond the politics, because the project will go ahead. We will work with each individual bit by bit, but there's no way we can allow that development, that's unplanned settlement, to continue. I mean, some of the people who are telling the residents not to move, they've never been there before. I mean, they've jumped on the political opportunity they think they see. How can you say to almost 80 houses where there's only one person with running water? One. Inside there. One. You have to buy a bucket of water, $2. You tell me they barely have 2 toilets. Think about that. There are only about 4 or 5 people with electricity. So people are taking electricity from each other. I mean, just go in there. Just ask some of the residents, where are your toilets? Where do you use? As a fisherman, where do you get water to clean the fish that you're selling? I mean, the conditions inside there are really terrible. And we have an opportunity now to clean up the place, to sort out the place, relocate persons who, have been living there, make sure they're taken care of, make sure there's engagement with them, and as much as possible, let us once and for all deal with this issue. It's been years you've been trying to clean up that place and to make it, something that is more presentable and more habitable. It's been a long journey, and we have an opportunity to do so now, and to say to them that, no, they should not move. And giving them notions that they're supposed to get $1 million to move really cannot work. And meanwhile, I heard they've already gone to Marigo, where we have to do some work on the Marigo beach, that they should not move also because, but that's just political mischief. The silly season has started, and we should expect a lot of that.
Oh, just one question though, just before you leave. So within the past couple of days especially, there has actually been a bit of talk within the public domain as well as social media about a possible cabinet reshuffle. I just wanted to know exactly, is there any truth of this actually occurring at this point in time?
Well, I've not heard that one. I better check on my job and make sure. No. I mean, I'm not the Prime Minister. It's the prerogative of the Prime Minister to decide on his cabinet. But you've just got me a little scared there because I've not heard that one. So that might be my last press conference as Minister. But I don't know. The Prime Minister alone can decide that. And if he thinks it's necessary to shift around, he will do so. And we serve at his pleasure.
Out of, I believe it was 80 individuals at Banans Bay, you said?
18?
80.
Units, structures.
How many individuals are you guys waiting to settle with or relocate before works can begin?
Well, the start of the works, we've already started. We've already started the piling for the jetty. The containers for the relocation of the fishers is ongoing. I think they've gotten 2 containers already. They still need to get a third one. And they need to put up the electricity, the running water for the fishers. But everybody will leave bit by bit. I mean, I have no doubts in my mind about it. There will be a few that will decide because of political reasons that they should not move, and then they will have to follow the process. I mean, if somebody decides they're not moving, then go to the courts and say to the court, look, you know, they're giving me $60,000 for a $2,000 plywood house I have, and I don't live there and I don't want to move. And let the court say, well, you have rights to stay, and then we'll respect whatever decisions. Anybody who decides they do not want to move and they believe they have a solid enough case, go to court.
But you won't be able to tell me how many people are still there.
I will have to go to my notes and to find out, but every day somebody's breaking down, every day. There are some people that are working with Crown Lands to get land for relocation, but every day we are moving, and trust me, the development will go ahead. I have no doubts in my mind on that, because I'm sure St. Lucians will accept, you know, a more humane, you know, arrangement in that area than what exists now. I mean, and as you pass it now, I'm sure you could drive on the main road and actually see the sea now, because houses are going down and they will continue to go down. Because I think most persons accept that everybody, I mean, first of all, most of them I think accept that they've gotten a good deal. But like everything else, if you get a certain amount and somebody whispers in your ears that you're supposed to get double what you get, what you expect will happen? You'll want to see if you can get double for true, no? Until you realize you can't really get double. And then you will act accordingly. So we'll see how it turns out. Yeah, thanks.